What's up, guys?
What up?
Welcome back to Those Nerds You Know.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Ethan LeBlanc.
And I'm David McQueen.
Marvelous.
Woo.
Alrighty, let's get down into it. Our main topic for today, what we want to talk about is adaptations. Adaptations of stories. Probably the easiest example we have nowadays is adapting books into movies, or comic books into movies. Yep. But we just want to talk about them in general because sometimes it happens the other way. Sometimes other things are added on to via different types of media.
We're seeing a swing in anime getting adapted into live action in America and stuff. And those
things
kinds
like
of
that. And even like supplementary material. I know Avatar: The Last Airbender has supplementary graphic novels.
Yeah, that's true.
Even Firefly has supplementary comic books.
Yep.
Things of that nature.
Yes.
Not necessarily adaptations so much as they are.
Yeah, continuations or changes or added. Yeah, like you said, added stuff to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I kept coming back to this idea of like, is there a type of are there rules? Are there things that make adaptations good? And if so, what are they? And why do so many people seem to get it wrong? That's my opinion, honestly. So especially in the movie realms, that a lot of people just don't do it very well. And I just wanted to have that conversation with you.
So I think part of it is a little bit, I guess it's a bit subjective in the sense that I know a lot of people, when they see adaptations like movies, especially in the case like you mentioned before, movies based on books, or nowadays movies based on comics, people are like, well, that's nothing like the book, or that's nothing like the movie, and be like, well, no, it's a movie and it's going to be different. But I feel like, so I don't think that's a bad thing, but I feel like that's one of the things people tend to harp on those kinds of stories. I feel like, in my opinion, a good adaptation would, if not tell the story of the thing, like capture what was cool or good or worth note of that story or book or whatever, those characters, whatever the case would be, and find some way to put that onto the screen or whatever form, whatever new media it's presented in. So like, I don't know, what's a good adaptation? I guess the Harry Potter movies would be a good one. Good example.
I feel like
while they didn't do everything the books did, they didn't they may have cut corners here and there and stuff like that. I feel like what made those movies do really well was the fact that they sold what was good about the books, which was the interactions with the characters and how they grew and how they overcame the adversity that was Voldemort and his cronies and stuff like that, and in the way they did it, like the interlocking stories between characters like Dumbledore and Snape and those kinds of things, and those interwoven stories, I felt like they were told just as well in the movies as they were in the books, even though they may not have been like word for word or spot on and stuff like that. Because I think part of it, the adaptation thing is, or I think part of the things I like about adaptations that people may have against, is that I feel like a good adaptation is one that you can appreciate whether you've read the material or not, or seen the previous source material or not. Because when done right, in my opinion, they shouldn't try to emulate one another's. They should try to find a way to both be good in different ways that people can be like, oh, this is good, but
I super agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I like what you mentioned. How I enjoy if you're going to adapt something, what you should do is you should use the strengths of whatever medium you're adapting it to. Instead of like, you don't need, like, in my opinion, how you mentioned that a lot of people are like, oh, the book was so much better. Just read the book, you'll like it more, or whatever. I know that movies are different than books, and that is perfectly fine and necessary, because they should be. Because books do certain things better than movies do, and movies do certain things better than books do.
Yeah.
Books are really good for detail. You can learn a lot of different things about the world. They're very great for world building.
Yes.
And you can learn different things. There's tons of detail in books. That's a lot of complaints that you hear, I think, is that, oh, they left out this little part. well, if that part wasn't really necessary in an hour and a half
Yeah.
to get the story on screen, then I'm kudos for them for leaving it out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's a difficult decision to make, and when you make good decisions that way, I think you get a good movie.
Yeah, definitely. So like I was saying, you kind of find what was good. So like for the comic book things, like say for instance the Marvel movies, I know a lot of people liked the Civil War movie, while I know a lot of people were excited about the Civil War movie because a lot of people liked the Civil War comic. Although now that the movie's come out, I've heard a lot of people talking about how bad the comic was originally. But one of the big, I guess, draws for the comics was that Civil War was about superheroes beating the crap out of one another. And that movie did that very well.
Yep, super good.
Like, it had that in spades. And honestly, a lot of people were saying that it had a better reason for them to do that. It had a better build-up, a better narrative for the movie than it did in the comics, which I applaud because, again, like, the comics will always be there. And I feel like that's another thing that people always seem to like, kind of regret, especially, like, adaptations of, like, older things that are, like, becoming new, like, old books or old TV shows being made into movies and things like that. Like, people are like, oh, no, they're ruining my childhood, or they're ruining blah, or whatever. Those things will still exist. Those things that are being adapted or still exist in their old form as well as in their new form. So,
we're going to murder all of these old cartoons, remove them from existence,
yeah,
and then all you're going to have is this crummy movie.
Yeah. But I do feel like some of the big problems, I think, or some of the challenges that people have to overcome that don't always get overcome is the change in the mediums, like in and of themselves. Like, for instance, when they adapt video games into movies, they kind of lose that interactivity that video games have, and they have to find some way to compensate for that, and it's tough to do that. While it's like you mentioned, for a book in a movie, they have to find some way to, like, grasp what's good about the book without being able to soak up every single detail of that book. So, like, every medium is a little bit different. And same for comics, too, I think. Because comics are written like books, but they're also visual like a movie already. Like, they're already basically, like, comics are written basically like screenplays. So it's like, part of you is just like, oh, I don't know why they can't just make the comic a movie. Well, if they did that, then, A, what would be the point of reading the comic? But B, like, I still don't think it would be that well done, because comics with their medium are able to do a bit more than can be physically possible on screen in movies and stuff like that, and in TV shows and such.
I agree. I think that's accurate. And I just...
On the topic of video game adaptations, I really liked the Assassin's Creed movie. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people hated it real bad. And I recently watched Wisecrack do a video where they talked about what went wrong with the movie. And they basically brought up the point that the problem with the movie is not a problem with necessarily the movie, but it's a problem with the movie and the games, in that the war between the Assassins and the Templars just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in that they both kind of want the same thing, but they're both going about it two different ways. And so it's hard to be like, well, why are the Assassins the good guys? They're doing just as much killing and terrible things as the Templars are. They just want people to be free about it. While in the game, that's not a question, because you're playing the Assassins and you get to run around and kill people. While in the movie, the narrative is still trying to, like, push that somehow, but at the same way, it's not doing it very well. And basically what they're saying is, because in the movie you couldn't control a character and kill people and, get engaged in those characters, you saw that the story was just not great. And that was one of the things I was saying about the game/movie when it first came out, was a lot of people were like, oh, the movie's bad because the story's bad. I'm like, no, the story's always been bad.
Yeah.
But you got to stab people, so it was okay.
Like, you play Assassin's Creed so you can kill people. Like, I don't play Assassin's Creed to learn about all the different stuff, as interesting as it might be. I play Assassin's Creed so that I can murder tons of people in tons of different creative ways. I play Assassin's Creed for the same reason I play any other game. It's because it's fun, because it's engaging, because I like doing things.
Yes, and so while I can say the story may not be that great for the movie as it is not great for the game, I appreciate the movie for the same reasons I appreciate the game, which, besides the fact that, I didn't actually get to control any of the characters stabbing anybody, the fight scenes are amazing. The fight scenes are spectacular, but also the acting is great, and the acting was great in the games. What's his bucket? who plays Constantine now in the CW, Seed, and CW stuff. He voiced Edward Kenway in the pirate game, Assassin's Creed 4. He was great. He did a great job. And like a lot of the actors do the mocap for their characters in the games, and I think they do all a great job. I think they have a great way of presenting those characters. And I felt like, Magneto. What's his name?
Fassbender.
I thought he did an excellent job. So did Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons is amazing.
Yeah, he's in that movie too.
Yeah, he played a bad guy, and he said a lot of vague stuff. But that's how the bad guys are in those games. You know what I mean? Like, that was one of the big complaints too. They're like, oh, I mean, everything's so vague. Like, yeah, I mean, they're both, like, trying to fight over the world, but they both are trying to get the same thing, and it's very non-specific.
Yeah, I think video games have a poor track record in the theater and movies thus far, and I think one of the real reasons for that is because people don't play video games necessarily for the story.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, there are some games that are getting to be like that.
Yeah.
Telltale games and different things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
There are games now where you can play for the story. I hear
Last of Us.
Last of Us, I hear, is very good.
Last of Us is very story driven. But even that, like, and honestly, the Last of Us, not to get off topic a little bit, but now
Get off topic all you want, David.
Last of Us,
no one's listening.
Is so, like, the story is so important to the game that it almost takes away from the game itself. In that, like, if you took all the story out of the game would just be awful. Because the game itself, it's like, unlike Assassin's Creed where you get to run around and stab people and fight and, you know, all these different great, amazing things. Last of Us, you basically get to creep around quietly and just be full of anxiety, and you have to have patience, and you basically have to move a ladder from point A to point B so you can go up to a new height, and then, like, you go to an area where there's water, you have to move a wooden plank so the girl can get on the plank and then move the plank to where you need to go, and then find a way to climb up yourself. Like, the gameplay is awful. The gameplay is terrible. but the story is so good.
Right.
So, like, when they talked about making that into a movie, I was like, yes! That sounds amazing. That sounds like it'd be better than the game.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just, that's the thing, is like finding out what games you can turn into movies and finding out what kind of story you're going to tell from those movies. I thought Warcraft was cool. I thought
so too. I also haven't played a lot of Warcraft.
Neither have I. I haven't played a lot of Assassin's Creed either, but I liked Assassin's Creed.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think it was a good decision for them to put Assassin's Creed somewhere the games haven't been.
Yeah, definitely. And I liked that they were able, again, like I mentioned before, they didn't try to stick to a certain source material, in the sense that they weren't trying to be like any of the games in particular, in that they took a different path, with it being in the Spanish Inquisition, and in a whole new setting with brand new characters and stuff like that, but still tied to that same world that the games have created. I thought that was an excellent choice, and I feel like a lot of movies could take that bit from their own.
A lot of video game movies,
video game movies, or even some book movies. I guess, or some. I guess not book movies, but more maybe like comic book movies or serial stories like that. Like where there's a lot going on in that world. Like, I don't like the adaptation of the Cassandra Clare's books. The City.
No one likes
Bones.
the adaptation.
Well,
the Mortal Instruments.
The Mortal Instruments.
City
That's
of Bones movie.
The movie. Okay.
Gosh, that was bad.
So the movie was awful, but the show. I'm saying on the show, I feel the same way. I feel like with a longer series book, you'd think a show would be a little bit a better take on it, and that you could do a lot more with the story. But even the show, like, I feel like the reason I stuck around with the show for as long as I did was because the actors and actresses in that show are just gorgeous. Everyone in there is so beautiful. It's not even funny. It's very CW, and it's not even on the CW. But it's like, and it's ridiculous because the point.
Is it a freeform show?
It's a freeform show, yeah. And the point, even like that kind of tipped me over the bar was with Hodge, right? Hodge is their, like, mentor, the old guy who's supposed to be with the crow and everything like that. And he's like maybe a 30-something guy with some gray in his hair, and he's like just swole as the rest of them with tats all over his arms. And I was like, he's gorgeous. What is this? He's supposed to have like a hunch and a crow. Like, why does he look so good? I don't know, man. It's just, and the dialogue in that is just awful. I mean, I've had people say the books are terrible, so maybe that's just I don't know. I doubt it. Books. I like the books.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's fine. I think. I personally feel like, again, when you give directors or production teams too much time and leeway, things can get kind of crappy.
Yeah.
I feel like if you can't make a good film, like a good hour and a half out of this book, whatever it is, with exceptions obviously based on the length of book.
Sure.
Like, those books aren't big.
No, they're not.
They're on my case. Like, they're on my bookcase. They're not big. You should be able to make a good film adaptation of The City of Bones. Like, that
at least the first
shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah.
But if you give them more time, first off, the adaptation was bad. But if you give them something like a series, I think it gets bad because people have to think about maybe we should add some stuff to the story or drag this thing out a little bit. And then you look at, I mentioned before,
they start adding these subplots that don't make any sense.
Yeah, I've mentioned before, every time Marvel releases a new Netflix series, I garner less and less confidence in their ability to make a Netflix series.
Yeah. They try to do too much, or like
too long.
Too long. Yeah, the shows are way too long.
Too drawn out and too boring. My gosh, the first season
they're supposed to be realistic.
No, the first season of Daredevil was great.
Yeah, first season was great.
I'm sure Jessica Jones is as good as people say it is.
Yeah,
I don't watch it because it makes me sad, and I don't feel like being sad when I watch
it's
stuff.
An anxious story.
No thanks.
Yeah, I get that.
But I mean, like, I just gosh, Luke Cage was so boring.
Yeah, and it had so much going for it too.
Iron Fist was so boring.
Yeah,
it was slightly better, I think, than Luke Cage, but both of them could have.
I honestly I liked Luke Cage a little bit more than Iron Fist.
That's fine.
I felt like Iron Fist had so much potential, and
they all have potential.
I know,
David. We've seen Luke Cage before. He's in Jessica Jones, and then we spend 13 episodes trying to figure out who he is and what he wants to do and all this stuff. Like, just spend 2 episodes on that. And
we've discussed before about how, like, why is he in New York when he's trying to be low-key after he broke out of prison in Georgia? Why did he move to Harlem? Why did he not move to, like, Wisconsin? Or, like, why did he move to, like, Seattle?
Move somewhere where you're not going to attract, like, attention, or when you're not...
No, it didn't make any sense. There's a lot of things that didn't make sense about that. Honestly, and I feel a similar way about the second half of season 2 of Daredevil, and people fight me on this at every front. They're like, "No, man, Daredevil's great. Daredevil's amazing." And I was like, "Daredevil is great," but season 2 was good until like once Punisher was arrested and Elektra was the main story. I didn't care anymore.
It got really samey.
It got very samey. And like every time I tell it to people, they're like, "No, it was awesome. And Daredevil's great." And I'm like, I feel like you're just not noticing.
Daredevil is good. Daredevil's fine. I would gladly watch the second season of that before I watch Luke Cage or Iron Fist again.
Sure.
But I agree. Second season was not as good as the first. The first season of Daredevil is great.
It's awesome.
It was a very, very good adaptation. It's just... I think they just got too big for their britches after that.
Yeah, I feel like they got a little too confident. They got, I don't know, they didn't get. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but it's a tough gig. I'll tell you who's one that does a really, really good adaptation, I think, and that is the Walking Dead, in the sense that it started as a comic, and then now it has a show, and then now it has a Telltale video game, and like, one of the things I love about all of those things is that all of those things exist, and they're not quite the same in any form or fashion, in that the world is the same and some of the characters are the same, but the story is a little bit different, woven depending on which medium you're playing it in, or seeing it in, or reading it in, whatever the case may be, consuming it, I guess. So you can appreciate each of them in different ways, in that they're all good because of that. I think they all work a little bit because there's different focuses and different stories and different things that are being told, but the message is still there. Like, why, I think the point of Walking Dead is still there. The things that make it good, right. the connections the characters have with one another, the struggles they overcome,
the human interaction, the human element.
Yeah, the human element of the zombie story is there in each of them in some form or fashion. I think that is a really, really great way to do an adaptation.
And I think it speaks because, like, the comics in the movie and the comics in the show are different.
Yes.
They have different things that happen in them.
Yeah.
But both people that you can enjoy both of them.
Yeah.
And I imagine the Telltale game will be somewhat similar.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's stressful and sad, but that's basically the story. That's basically the comic and the show. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like it is effective in all three of those media, and that's hard to do. First off, and impressive.
Props to them. Yeah.
But like also obviously not impossible.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think.
And so that's what makes me so upset at certain things.
Yeah.
And certain adaptations, and just like I feel like people learned like some of the things that I think make adaptations fail is that people learn the wrong lessons from other successful adaptations.
Yeah.
For instance, Twilight. Hate on it what you want. It made 5 movies that made money.
Yeah.
And so it was quote unquote successful.
Yes.
And so when anyone else wanted to adapt a young adult fiction novel, they're like, oh, what did Twilight do? Oh, Twilight just got some really pretty people and had them kind of pretend to act.
Yep.
And they did great.
Kind of pretend to act.
So let's go. But like ignoring the fact that Twilight went into those movies with probably the biggest book following.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the fan base was huge before it became a movie.
Prior to going in, since Harry Potter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like these other young adult novels or young adult movies that tried to base things off young adult novels, like they didn't have near that.
No.
They were popular, sure.
Kids
but they didn't have that. You know, and so
like
rather than hiring a bunch of pretty people,
Divergent and Maze Runner,
Divergent,
kinds of things.
Maze Runner, I think is actually very good.
Okay, no, I know.
But I was talking about things like Beautiful Creatures.
Yeah,
the freaking.
Oh man, I love that movie. I never read the book, but the movie.
We mentioned Mortal Instruments.
Jeremy Irons is that too.
Yeah, we mentioned the Mortal Instruments.
Jeremy Irons, just put Jeremy Irons in the movie, and it'll be a great adaptation.
Well, nobody apparently liked Assassin's Creed.
Either of them. No, he's apparently awful.
What is it? Vampire Academy.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't mind that one either. I don't know, but I understand that suffer from the same problem.
Right. Yeah, and so like this is just.
Yeah. No, I was just saying. You're saying it's just like those books weren't as popular as Twilight to begin with.
Let's name some more of them. Fifth Wave.
Oh gosh, I never saw that one.
I have number 4.
Oh wow, yeah, we're going back.
Gosh,
I have number 4.
All these, I number 4 is cool too. I didn't mind that movie.
Such a good one. Yeah, they're still putting out books too, man. They could still do that.
Yeah, they're definitely not getting another movie.
No.
So it's just like, but again, I feel like people learn the wrong lessons. And if you would just
John Green's books, like they're not a series, but they're all young adult novels that are really popular. But although his movies, I think his movies do fine because his books typically do fine.
Yeah. And also, he's not a series, so like one movie isn't going to depend on another.
True.
So that's a good.
That's a good point too.
But I mean, like, so many of these books have good stories.
Yeah.
If you would just take the time to make a good movie, rather than assuming that people will like your movie because they like the book. That's another thing I think video game movies suffer from.
Yeah.
It's like they just assume that people will go see this movie because they like the game.
I feel like that's.
And then the first wave of people do that, and then they say, this was terrible.
Yeah.
And then that's all the people who are going to see it just based off the regular fan base anyway. People who go see it the first weekend.
Yeah.
And then if it's a good movie in general, other people will go see it.
Yeah.
If it's not, everyone who saw it will be like, nah, don't waste your time.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. I feel like in the past, at least, and we've seen both sides of this, honestly. In the past, like when they try to make a movie adaptation of a video game, they try to make the movie appealing to the mainstream audience, and it's not appealing to the fans of the game. So when the fans of the game go, they're like, this movie is awful, and then the people that aren't fans of the game hear the fans don't like it, and so they're just not going to go see it.
Right.
But then we've seen the other side of that in that with the Ratchet and Clank movie, they try to make the movie appeal to the fans, and the fans, I think, as far as I could tell, liked it, but it wasn't popular enough that the mainstream were able to pick it up. Like, just because the fans like it didn't mean the mainstream audience was going to like it. They didn't get it because they. I still haven't seen that movie, but like from what I could tell from it, from what scenes I have seen and some things like that I've picked up from it, it seems like it leans so hard on the appreciating the fan side of it that like. I feel like a lot of what is good about that movie would be lost on the mainstream audience. Like, they don't get some of the jokes, or they don't get some of the references they're making. They don't understand what's going on, those kinds of things. And I heard one person talk about how, like, the Ratchet and Clank movie would have been better if it was like like a collector's edition DLC like add-on to one of the games or something. Like if you bought this version of the game, it came with this movie. You know, like make it shorter or make it more like a TV movie or something. Because apparently it did fine with what it was, but
I was just speaking in that vein.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about Scott Pilgrim and how that movie, I think, hit its target audience incredibly well.
Yes.
I love that film. I saw it 5 times in theaters. It's great.
Yes.
I absolutely love it, and I am the person they were trying to get into the theater, definitely. I'm the person that was aimed at. But I was just looking it up, and it didn't make money.
Mm-mm.
I don't
think it did well at all.
It was not successful in the box office.
Yeah. And so
and so I guess it's a hard line to walk.
Yeah.
You know, you want people to come see this film.
Yeah.
And so if you're choosing to adapt something, okay, well, we've got to get the fans in, but we've also got to get more than the fans in. So I don't know, but I mean.
And that one was based off a comic too. So
it was. It is an adaptation.
Yeah.
An adaptation of something that didn't even have an ending at the time that it was.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I love that film, and I guess that's an example of someone liking it. Well, that's another thing I wanted to talk about is, like, I was not a fan of Scott Pilgrim before I saw the movie. I didn't read any of the comics.
Yeah, no,
I saw a trailer for the film, and I thought, that looks great. It looks hilarious. It's right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go see it when it comes out. And I did, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I later on read the comics, and I loved both the comics and the movie for different reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's such a good adaptation.
I had 2 examples of that for me. In that, I watched the Golden Compass movie before I ever read His Dark Materials series, and I thought the movie was great. And when I came out of that theater, it was the first time I'd ever seen that movie. I never read any of the books, remember, but when I saw the movie kind of ended on a kind of a cliffhanger, I was like, oh man, this is based on a book. I got to read those books. And so I read the books, and because I watched the movie first, I feel like I was able to appreciate the movie. Not that the book wasn't. Honestly, it was one of the examples where I would think the book was not as good as the movie, only because the books all tend to have a very sad ending, and the movie kind of changed it in a way that it had a very good ending. It was a very happy ending, very hopeful ending. But also it was done in a way that, like, the other books, if they were to continue with that series, which they're not going to, would have had to take a different path a little bit because they changed certain events that were really important to the later books. Certain things, like certain characters that should have been killed off weren't killed off. Certain characters that were killed off shouldn't have been killed off. Things like that. Goofiness like that. But also, I feel like a lot of problems with that particular adaptation was, I remember when I went to see that movie, there was all this controversy about the movie because of its source material, and that, like, the author who wrote it apparently wasn't very religious or something, and they felt it was very anti-church or something. I'm not certain. I'm pretty religious in myself, and I thought it was fine. And the books were all right too. I didn't care. I thought it was a neat story, and it was an interesting take on a multiverse and very cool connections with the characters and stuff like that. And I felt the movie definitely grabbed that very well and ran with that. They took what was good about the book, I felt, and they ran with that. You know, a universe where there's multiple universes, characters that have spirit animals walking alongside them. I thought that was fantastic. And the other example I had was when I saw the trailers to the movie The Martian, and I was like, oh, it's based off a book. I'm going to read that book before the movie comes out. And so I challenged myself to read that book before it came out, and I did. And I think partly because I knew it had adaptation, I had a mindset of that. And so when I was reading the book, for instance, when I was reading the book, I imagined the character as Matt Damon because I knew Matt Damon was going to play that character, basically. And so I feel like it kind of like presented it in a certain way for me. But I felt like when I saw the movie, it played out just like I thought it was going to in the book. They took out a lot of the scientific explanations for things, which made a lot of sense in the books, but like we mentioned before, in a movie it would take too much time. It would take a lot of stuff like that. And
I feel like you were watching some kind of special on Discovery rather than actually watching the movie.
And also, again, they tweak the ending a little bit in that it was a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more happy. Not that the book didn't have a happy ending.
A little bit more fun.
But yeah, the book had a happy ending as well, but it was a lot more realistic and a lot more scientific, as opposed to, you know, him just kind of floating around like Iron Man with air coming out of his suit in the movie, which was great. And it was really funny because in the book, he says to do that, and they shoot him down, and they don't do that at all. Like, they find another more realistic way to do it.
That's a horrible idea.
But in the movie, they ran with it. I loved it. I love that they did that. So I don't know, because, and I feel like, again, because I felt it was a good adaptation because they stuck to, you know, the things that made that book very good, and that, like, the science in the movie and in the book were solid, and they were presented in a way that it was easy for a reader to pick up, even if they didn't know the science very well. I felt like while the movie didn't have as much science as the book, it was still presented in a way, and there was still enough to keep you interested and keep you from being confused, basically. Right. And also, the main character, Watsky? I don't remember the guy's name. I don't know. Anyway, Matt Damon's character in the movie.
Matt Damon.
The character in the book was very comical, and he had a very good sense of humor, and that helped him survive on Mars, basically. Like, he just had a good outlook on the things that was going on, and that was very well presented in the movie as well. And so I felt that really helped push. So, like, the book could have had because of its dark premise, I think, could have had a very dark and sad, you know, way to get through it, but because of the way the character, perceives these things and the way he, dealt with them in his light sense of humor, it was more enjoyable for the reader. And in the movie, I felt it was more enjoyable to watch because there was always a sense of like, this guy is smart, he'll get out of this, he'll figure this out. And he, if he's not worried, then I'm not going to be worried, and things like that. And like, it wasn't that there wasn't any like point of like stress or intensity or anxiety, because they still had moments of that. But they found ways to make it so that the whole movie wasn't this big stressful time. I don't know. It was really neat. I thought I think that's a good example of them taking what worked with the movie. Both of those, I think, were good examples of things that worked with the books that worked with the movie as well. Yeah. I don't know how Golden Compass did financially.
I have no idea.
But I know they didn't make any more books or movies probably because of the controversy, but also probably because of the
it's likely because of the Mummy. The Mummy.
Yeah.
It's because of Brendan Fraser and the Mummy. No.
And because Brendan Fraser and the Mummy.
I like your comments there about how that the Golden Compass movie brought you to the books and how you saw ads for that. Oh gosh, I forgot the name.
Martian.
The Martian. And that made you read the book.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking to myself, a question we could ask, looking at all these failures and all these different horrible movies from these that have been adapted from other medias, is well, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe there are certain things that just shouldn't be adapted.
Maybe, but
and I disagree.
Yeah, I would say I don't,
because I honestly feel like for a lot of these stories, a lot of these characters, a lot of these wonderful, wonderful ideas, if they hadn't been adapted into something else, some people may never have even seen them.
Yeah, that's true.
You probably never would have read The Martian.
No.
Had they not made a movie, had you not seen a trailer for it.
Yeah, I'd have to have some nerdy friend of mine, pitch it to me.
I mean, like if Harry Potter didn't have movies, I wouldn't know that story.
Yeah.
Because I didn't read when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that's left over now where I haven't read the Harry Potter books. I just haven't read them.
He's not a real fan, guys. He's not a real fan.
Because I didn't read them when I was a kid, and I just watched all the movies.
2319, we got 2319.
I just watched all the movies because that's what I prefer.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's simpler and easier and faster for me.
I felt that way about a few different forms of media.
But I still love Harry Potter, and I love that world. And again, if they hadn't made movies of it, I would not know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way about Spider-Man. We've talked before. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero.
Yeah.
And I've read a few of the comics. I have.
Mm-hmm.
But if there weren't cartoons that have been adapted from those comics that I saw as a kid, and if there weren't movies, I wouldn't get into it. I wouldn't have gotten into Spider-Man.
No, I wouldn't have gotten into most of the Marvel universe.
Right.
or even the X-Men for that matter, if it wasn't for the movies.
So
I got into comics way late. I got into DC from the Batman, the Batman animated series and the Justice League animated series and stuff like that. Watching those shows, and then getting interested in the comics themselves. Yeah. And I got more invested in DC than I did in Marvel. But Marvel has done a good job about presenting those comics to me. Because even now, I don't think I read that much of the comics. I think Spider-Man and Iron Man are like about as much as I've read in the comics. Because I don't know. I feel like part of it is because the comics have been around for so long, and there's so much that you could read that it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
I feel like the movies have presented it in a way that it's easy enough to pick up, and you can be like, oh, I know the basic story of this character. I've seen their origin. I've seen what they do and stuff like that. And they're really good about sticking to that in those movies for the most part. Some of the DC movies not as much, but the Marvel movies do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, and I think a mark of a good adaptation is something that brings you back to its source material. In a good way. You see a good movie or a good show about a certain character or a certain story, and you're like, that sounds great. Can I get my hands on any more of this?
Yes.
And it's like, oh, there's a bunch of books you can read.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll go do that.
Yeah.
Different things of that nature. And
I feel like one of the best, I guess, adaptations out there are some like manga to anime.
Gosh, yes.
That's some of the best, and I think I'm not like saying that like, oh, that's the only way to do it.
I do feel though that there is. It's not quite as difficult story-wise to move from a serialized comic to a serialized animation.
Sure.
Because style-wise, you've already got your plans laid out, and story-wise, you've already got your plans laid out. There are certain difficulties, definitely, that present themselves in anime or in other animations or things of that nature.
And I feel like that's one of the reasons, like, things like DC's animated movies do probably better than their live action movies.
Gosh, yes.
Because you can do a lot more from a comic. An animation is closer to its source material than not, basically.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I think that has a lot to go with it.
A little bit more believable, I think, and in a lot of cases, a lot easier to suspend disbelief for like these big super stories in a cartoon version than it is in a live action version. But again, I think one of the tricks about doing a live action movie right is when you see something that has happened in the comics or in a cartoon happen in quote unquote real life. And it works, and it just hits really well. You're like, that's awesome. That's super cool. Like seeing Spider-Man fling around New York, and throw people around and swing and just like
talk smack to villains.
Like, that's so cool.
That
to
is
see.
very cool.
And seeing Iron Man put his suit on and like just shoot stuff, like that's really cool, and it's done really well in live action. Again, you also have to have a good story and yada 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 and get the character right.
Definitely.
But I think that's something that's a way you can utilize that medium well. I'm sorry, I totally pulled you off track from that, but anime and manga.
You're good. No, you're good. No, I was pulling you off track.
Back to that.
But no, you're good. Because I only mentioned it because we now have some live action renditions of anime, and so things are starting to come into live action, and there's been a struggle. Like it's like video games in the sense that and I feel like part of it for us, and I say us as in being from America, is that we're making American live action movies of anime series that have started in Japan, and I feel like part of it is, in our case, I think. There's kind of some stuff getting lost in translation, maybe. Yeah. Some stuff that's just not culturally the same with us, and I feel like that's a big part. I feel like that was a big part of. I think some of the movies that have come out. I know Ghost in the Shell didn't do very well.
Probably not.
And I know Dragon Ball Evolution did awful.
Oh my gosh, that movie was just bad.
And then now Netflix is doing Death Note.
Right.
And a lot of people are starting to think that it might be okay, but it may not be. But
I think those kinds of movies, again, anime movies specifically, live action anime movies, suffer heavily from the conflict of, okay, do we make this for the fans? That something that just the fans will like, or do we try and make this for people who have not been introduced to this in the anime version? Yeah. Because non-anime fans typically are different than anime fans.
Yeah.
And there's a culture in anime fans that's usually just different than other people, other fandoms.
Also, I think I'm of the belief, I guess to answer the question a little bit, I think I'm of the belief that if you're going to make a live action movie or a live action show based off an anime, I feel like you should present it in a way that a new viewer could understand it, particularly from a financial perspective, but also because I feel like if you're sticking to the source material close enough, or I guess well enough, I guess not necessarily close enough, because it doesn't have to be close, but as long as it's, you get what's important, you're going to tell that story anyway, because animes come in with the assumption, like, animes don't just start in medias res and you just don't understand what's happening the rest of the show, like some do, but it's like they eventually get to the point where you understand what's happening and stuff like that. Things are explained in shows, and you understand. It's like some anime that are based off manga, sometimes the anime picks up in the middle of the manga or later in the manga, and you have to read the manga and understand what's happening, or they'll end the show early before the manga ends, and you have to finish the manga to continue. But I'm under the impression that anime stands best on its own 2 feet, just as manga stands up on its 2 feet. And then you should be able to read and or watch those 2 things and not have to see the other to do that. And so I feel like that same applies to the live action, in that, like, if you're going to do live action, you should make it in a way that people will understand it. I feel like a part of what I think is being lost is what is important about the anime or whatever the in question. Like, what is the message we're trying to send? I feel like I know a lot of people got hung up on the Ghost in the Shell movie because a white woman played a character who's supposed to be Japanese, and I was not as upset about it. I mean, like, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I'm not Asian or anything. I don't know. I'm a white guy, so I don't know what I can say about that. But but I did see a big problem with the movie compared to the show was that the movie's message was way different than the show. In that the show presented what's her name now?
Major?
Major, yeah, the Major, as she wasn't like someone special, like her body wasn't special. She was a robot body that her mind was in, that there was like a common unit. Like, it's been around. Like, a lot of people in Japan use that robot body like she does, and also like her, like, people are getting augmented all over Japan and things like that. And also the show wasn't so much. So, like, the American movie had this message of, like, like, where is it too far? Like, when do you augment to the point that you've separated yourself from your humanity and stuff like that? While in the Japanese, it wasn't about that. The augmentation wasn't in question. People did it because it made them better and stuff like that. The question was really like, how do you stand out in a world where everybody looks the same and things like that. And it was a little bit different in this sense, where it was like the Japanese anime was more accepting of the cyberpunk culture, while the movie was being like, no, this is bad, and corporate America caused this, and things like that. And it's like, that's not how it was.
Yeah, it's not very different. Yeah,
and so it's like the message and the point was a little bit different. And I feel like for instance, if they were to, so Fullmetal Alchemist is probably like one of my favorite anime. It's like, it's up there. It's really up there. If they were to do a live action of that story, I feel like, as much as the alchemy and homunculus and all the fighting and stuff like that would be really neat to see in the live action, the thing they gotta get is the brotherhood. They gotta get Edward and Alphonse and their brotherhood together. They have to get that, because that, I think, is a much better driving force of the show, and what's better for it than like fighting homunculus and doing magic with alchemy and stuff. And the same, or like, not just with the brothers, but the brothers' interactions with other characters and stuff like that. Like, if they're going to adapt something like that, I feel like what they need to figure out is what exactly is it that makes that good, and find a way to present that in the different medium, as opposed to trying to stick so close to, or just completely going off book and not at all using the source material. A little bit like the adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I feel like the movie for that, I feel like
was bad.
It was bad, but I feel like the problem with that was the opposite, in the sense that, like, they didn't stick to the source material at all, and I feel like that is so. That's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't have to stick to the source material to a T, but it has to be the same thing. Like it has to be the at its core
has to feel the same.
It has to feel the same. It has to be the same in the sense that like they both come from the same world, or they have the same characters, or something connects them.
I feel like fans of things that are being adapted into other media can be forgiving in certain things, but there are some things you can't forgive.
Yeah,
and I think. For me, what I've seen and what I understand, you bring up a good point about message.
Yeah.
You know, if the message is different than what the other medium was, I think a lot has to do with character. If characters are wrong, like people were in Batman v Superman, and also a bit in Suicide Squad.
A
lot of the problems people had wasn't necessarily the plot so much as it was the characters.
Yeah.
A lot of people were upset at the way Batman was.
Yeah, he was just straight up murdering people.
Superman was. Yeah.
Yeah, he started moping and not being very hopeful at all.
Right, and it's like these aren't the characters we know and love.
Yes. Yeah.
This is some weird, dumb adaptation
gritty,
of them.
Some sort of
and
edgy.
This is not who I came to see.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not Lex Luthor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they could have done a Batman versus Superman story, and it could have been completely original to the movie. Like, they didn't have to recycle some plot from the comics because they didn't really do that here. They kind of sort of did it from Batman Returns, but not really. Like, they could have just made their own story like they did of why Batman fights Superman. But if they had stuck to the characters a little better, if Batman was the Batman we know and love, if Superman was Superman we know and love, and they found a genuine reason why they would be fighting, that could have been amazing. That would have been an amazing movie, even if it wasn't close to any kind of comic that had ever come out. In fact, it probably would have been amazing even though it was not, because you'd be able to appreciate that movie even though you didn't have a comic book to go back on. So, I don't know. Yeah, no, it has to be... They have to be... similar. They have to be similar. There has to be some strong connection, and I feel like that's how it is. Like you said, like with whether it's the characters or the message, there has to be something that there has whatever the reason people like that thing. If you're going to adapt it, you've got to find that way, that thing, and find some way to incorporate that into the adaptation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Agreed. Well, David, I think we've talked this thing to death.
Yeah, no, I think so too. We could always come back to it though.
We super can.
I love this a lot.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Especially with all these new adaptations, like.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, we're deep in reboot nostalgia mining. Trend, and
money.
That's what it's gonna be for a while.
Yep.
I'm sure of it. Which is so like everything we've just talked about. What I'm gonna talk about is just a little bit similar. I recently watched the movie The Mummy.
Oh, yeah?
The new one with Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah?
And
how'd that go?
A few other people would know it, I guess.
I haven't seen that movie.
Who else? Gosh. This movie suffers from two things that I feel a lot of movies nowadays suffer from.
Okay.
One
is in the sky.
No, there's no portal in the sky.
Good.
I don't think there was. Yeah. One was
2016 for you right there.
One is Identity Crisis.
What is Identity Crisis?
That means this movie has no idea if it was trying to be an action movie, a horror movie, or a comedy.
Okay. Wow, that's a range.
It is.
You're trying to be all three of us?
Oh my gosh! I mean, like when you watch the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
Yes.
It's funny and it's got plenty of action.
Yes.
It's got a couple of scares.
Sure.
But it wasn't. It's like The Mummy's not a horror movie.
No, it's not a scary movie. No.
It is.
It has
a
some
supernatural action movie. It's a little bit of comedy.
It's an action movie. It's more an action movie than it is a comedy, for sure.
It's an sci-fi movie.
But like the best action movies, there is good comedy.
Right. Yes. It's got. He can throw quips and it's good.
Yeah.
This movie, just like anytime anyone tried to be funny, it did not work.
Oh no!
It fell so flat, and it was so dumb. And there were a couple moments of real scares.
That's odd.
That were real cool.
Yeah.
But then there was like this weird action that wasn't horrible, and there was all these really good stunts that I feel like belong in a really cool action movie or belong in a really cool
Mission
Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah.
But it's just it was so many like good moments, or maybe dark moments, or possibly intense moments were just ruined by some stupid comment.
It was meant to be funny, but wasn't.
Yes.
That's odd. I can't even like.
So bad.
I can't even imagine.
It's so bad,
so
David.
Weird.
And this movie. Spoilers for this movie, by the way, because I'm going to spoil it. Because you don't see this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, don't give it your money.
I might Redbox it. We'll see.
Redbox. Totally Redbox it. Redbox it. Get all your friends together, watch it, and just rip on it.
Yeah.
It's. I feel like I have a pretty high tolerance for movies.
Sure, yeah, I'm pretty easy too.
But this film was like, I walked out of it and I was just like,
You wanted your money back a little bit?
Oh, so bad. It's just like
your time. Yeah.
So
walk me through this a little bit here. just some basic stuff.
First off, Tom Cruise is playing like a really supposedly.
Is he supposed to be like the Brendan Fraser of the movie?
He's the main character. He's supposed to be young.
Okay.
But he's not. Man's like 50 some odd. We're supposed to believe he's like
Tom Cruise is
30s, maybe 40. I don't know. It's like,
40s.
He was not a good call. He was not a good call for this.
No.
Oh gosh. And so like he plays this. What is he? He's like. So he's in the military. No, he's actually in the military for some at some point.
Okay.
And
I mean that's kind of like Brendan Fraser's.
He's reconnaissance. That's basically what he is.
Okay.
And he's got this little partner in crime that he kind of takes around with him. But what he's really doing while he's doing recon is like anytime he finds some like cool artifacts or whatever that he think might be worth something, he'll go out of his way to get them. And then to sell them on the black market.
Nice. That's how you make a profit. It's a good business to get into.
I mean, like, what is he?
It's like Uncharted a little bit.
But he's in the military. Like, he has to report to people on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, how do you? I don't understand how he would.
How he get away with it?
Maintain both of those lives.
Yeah, that is really weird.
Anyway, he puts his companion into some really terrible situations. They find this village. It's got mummies underneath. It's got something underneath. It's got some kind of ruins. He's like, let's go find those ruins. The other guy's like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. And he's just like, well, you gotta do it anyway. Ha ha! Because I'm the main character and you're gonna follow me. And then he cuts his water bottle and he loses all his water. So essentially, if he wants to live, he has to follow.
That's a really
it's horrible.
Dick way to get your friend to follow you.
No.
That's awful. What an awful.
That's like so they try to force this like buddy relationship between Tom and his friend, that character, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that sounds awful.
It really doesn't. Like, they don't seem like friends at all. They don't. Like, it's weird. It's super weird. Then there's this really forced romance between him and the main female. That I don't buy at all.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
That they would have any kinds of feelings for one another. They have a one-night stand that apparently neither of them enjoyed.
And he
stole her map. He stole the map to get to this place from her because she is an actual archaeologist, quote unquote.
This is interesting.
It's so dumb. It's so stupid. And they
what an interesting
quote
choice.
Unquote fall in love. Like I feel like it would have been a lot more believable for me if the two of them had been like divorced.
Okay.
And maybe they caught up with one another somehow, and he took this from her, and then so they had some stuff that they needed to work out that they didn't previously in their life, but they still knew one another, so they had a relationship to base that off of. So that the course of this film that takes place over like 24 hours maybe.
Yeah.
Then it would be more realistic to me of them actually developing more feelings for one another, but they don't. That's not the case. She just loves him for no freaking reason. So stupid. Her character is so weak, and having just watched Wonder Woman, I'm looking at this female character and I'm like,
you're so ruined. Yeah,
so
I know, at this point, yeah.
Gosh. Oh, so stupid.
Yeah.
They unleash a mummy like you do.
Like the title says.
Yeah. The mummy chooses him. So the mummy is apparently, this chick is she's made a pact with Set, I think is the name of the god of the underworld.
Yeah, in
Big
Egyptian
bad,
god, yeah.
Trying to bring Set into this existence by what she would be doing was essentially sacrificing a male and then Set would come in and possess that male's body.
This sounds a little bit like Suicide Squad.
I guess. Yeah.
Except they kind of skip all that crap and just find a random dude in a subway.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise. But yeah.
So the mummy chooses homeboy Tom, like you do.
Yeah. You know, you're gonna choose anybody.
Right. And there's a really cool bit where, like, you know, part of what she needs for this ritual is a knife with a jewel in it, and the jewel has been taken.
Mm-hmm.
Was taken.
Persian.
No, it was taken by some like Templar Masons or whatever. I don't know, by people who the Knights Templar. Yeah. Anyway, the people that were in the Crusades.
Okay.
On
All
one
right.
of the partially successful Crusades. By the way, none of them were successful, quote unquote. That ransacked some places in the Middle East, took some jewels and some stuff back with them, and put them in a tomb in London. And so she needs to get there, and so she somehow works it out. She uses her mystical powers and all that nonsense to somehow make it so that the plane goes down, it crashes. You see the scene where they're all floating
with the
around
weird yell.
You see that in the trailer. The plane goes down, and then she starts doing her mummy thing where she takes basic humans and sucks the life out of them to give her more life.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And turns them into
like
her.
Imhotep.
Yeah, and then she then turns them into her slaves. So anyone that she gets
That's neat.
life from becomes her zombie mummy slaves.
Zombie slaves. That's cool.
Right up. Meanwhile, Tom is... His name is Nick, by the way. Character's name is Nick.
Does he become immortal or something? I know in the trailer he wakes up in a body bag or something goofy.
Right, yeah. He wakes up. He's not dead, basically because he's chosen by this chick.
By the mummy, all
I
right.
presume.
Okay.
I don't fully understand that. But he's got this,
I think I'm following you.
he's got this way... He's connected to the mummy, right?
Okay.
So,
like Dragonheart?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Because she wants to sacrifice him, right?
Ah.
So he keeps having this feeling that he should be near her, be around her. And so he's basically drawn to her.
Okay.
Even against his will. Even when he's not trying to. Like, there's a scene where they attempt to get away from the mummy. They drive away from the mummy in this car, and he's the one driving. And then they don't know where they are, and then they look up, and all of a sudden they're back at the place where the mummy was, and the mummy's standing in front of them. Interesting. There's some interesting things about it, and the mummy is genuinely freaky. A really dumb part about this movie is that they build up the monster hunting crew.
Okay.
In attempt, because this is part of the Dark Universe, right? This is
supposed to be some sort of
kicking off the Dark Universe.
where there's monsters.
Where there's all kind of monsters, and they're going to band together to do good things, I guess.
Dracula, mummy.
All this nonsense.
Okay.
So, spoiler, the reveal is this chick who he's been palling around with is part of some kind of league, some kind of group
Kind of
that hunts monsters.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
More or less.
And ladies.
Not really, though, because they've been hunting monsters and killing them.
Okay.
And they've been doing it apparently for a very long time.
Alrighty.
It's been a secret society doing that nonsense. She's kind of new to the society. You get the idea.
Okay.
She is more or less of an archaeologist and is interested in these things.
I was under the impression that these monster movies would have the monsters be the stars of the. Okay. I'll follow you.
Just wait.
I'll follow you on
Just
this one.
you wait. So they show up. They capture the mummy.
Sure.
All these marine
like
guys
you do.
capture the mummy. So now we're at this point in this movie where you're like halfway through it, and you haven't seen the mummy do a whole lot of things, and it seems like a lot of the attention is pulled away from the mummy for a bit, which I think is weird. And the mummy's basically captured and reduced to this prisoner.
Yeah.
For a while.
Sure.
And then we go through this thing where we're talking. Who is Russell Crowe? Is that the other guy?
Yeah, Russell Crowe. Yeah, that's him.
Russell Crowe is the leader of this
trailer.
group.
Sure.
And he introduces himself. He's like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Jekyll."
Yeah.
And
like you do.
So he is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yep.
That is him. And he's the leader of this
I heard
organization.
that from some press releases and such. Yeah.
And I didn't read any press releases, but I honestly believe this movie did way too much in the trailers as well. I hate trailers. I hate them. And this movie revealed too much in the trailer, in my opinion.
It sounds like they didn't follow the trailer as much at all.
There's a line in the trailer where Russell Crowe is talking to Tom.
Sure.
Nick. Jekyll talking to Nick. And he says, well, like you're presumed to believe, you're made to believe in the trailer that he's talking to Tom, and this actually doesn't actually happen. It's just like a voiceover at the end of it. And what he says is sometimes it takes a monster to defeat a monster.
Sure.
And so immediately when I heard that and saw that trailer, I was like, okay, well obviously Nick is going to become the Mummy.
Sure.
Because this is a movie about the Mummy.
Yeah, right?
And it's kicking off the Dark Universe.
Sure.
As we go on, the Mummy eventually gets free because it has to for the movie to become interesting again.
Because it has to for the movie to get interesting again. Oh, man.
There's a really cool effect of her turning all the glass in London into sand so she can do the sand face, which is just cool.
That's awesome.
That really cool,
really neat,
real solid, good idea, well done. One of the couple of things that was cool in the movie. Then, what they're trying... I don't remember what they're trying to do. I don't remember how they were planning to defeat the Mummy. I think they were planning to...
Some sort of MacGuffin they're going after?
Yeah, it's the knife thing. The knife thing with the jewel in
it. That's
so
going to stop
They
her.
had to have a knife, and they had to have the jewel, and they had to put the jewel back on the knife.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were going to stab her with it. I don't exactly remember. Or they were going to stab him with it. One of the two. They were going to kill Tom's character, I believe, because that would somehow stop her plan.
Killing Nick was going to stop the Mummy?
Yeah. Which again, I don't really know how. I don't know how that was going to.
Like, was it sacrificing him part of the plan?
I
have no idea.
I don't know.
Okay, you're good. I'm just curious.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Regardless, I think at some point it was maybe the plan to stab her with the knife. Anyway, it comes to Nick eventually being face-to-face with the Mummy again, where the Mummy has the upper hand.
Okay.
Mummy has now killed old girl, like she did.
His boo?
Yeah. She's super dead.
The boo girl. She did. Okay.
She did. I don't understand this entirely.
Alrighty. That's okay. It's probably not your fault.
Nick takes it upon himself to stab himself with the knife to complete the ritual. But I think when he did that, rather than completing it the normal way where she would do it, and again, I don't know, if you've seen the movie, maybe you know this better than I do. And maybe I'm not remembering it correctly because it was a bad movie, but
because it was a bad movie.
He essentially becomes Set. However, he also maintains his humanity.
Okay.
So he has both of these things inside. He has him and he has Set. He has both of these things. He is, at one moment, both Nick and the god of death.
The god of death.
The god with power over life and death. He then kisses the Mummy to death. Which is like kind of how she's been sucking life out of people. Like she grabs their head and just like sucks their head and just takes all the life out of them. And that's kind of what he does to her.
Yeah.
Pulls all the life out of her, kills her, screams at old girl until she comes back to life.
Brings back his boo.
Correct.
Boo girl.
And then they have a conversation briefly.
Okay.
And while he's in the shadows, kind of talking, because he develops this sort of anger issue because he's the god of death.
He's
another fun thing. So another fun thing that I failed to mention is that Nick's friend, was basically the first person.
Yeah, what happened to Goose?
So he was the first person to get sort of infected by the Mummy. He was infected by a spider though.
Okay.
He basically became like her mind slave, and he was the one who kind of caused the plane. Well, that didn't cause the plane to crash, but he was cutting the sarcophagus loose from the plane and stabbed a couple people. And before they killed him, kill him. He's not dead. He keeps appearing as an apparition to Nick, to Nick, and he's like, "Hey, look, the only way we're going to get out of this is if you just do everything that the Mummy says."
That's like their pull, I guess. I don't know.
One of the, like, it's him and something else. He also gets visions of stuff.
Yeah. But
regardless,
it's just one of her.
That's probably the only thing that I really enjoyed.
One of her tactics.
Old boy, because he would just show up at random moments, and he's dead, and he looks real dead, but he's kind of snarky.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. That was, like, the most fun part about this movie. Even though they tried to make a whole lot of other things
thing
fun.
to be the fun part.
It's an experience.
That's like the Telltale Borderlands game where the main character has, like, an AI that's based off Handsome Jack stuck in his brain after Handsome Jack is dead. And so there's this dead man that's just talking to him the whole time about... But it's Handsome Jack, and Handsome Jack's this charismatic bad guy. Yeah, I get that.
We reached the dead end of this film, and Nick, who's now the mummy, has escaped capture from the monster hunting people. Right?
Okay.
There's also a fight between Nick and Hyde.
Oh, he hulks out?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hyde throws people around.
Is that any good?
It's all right. It's not. It's mostly pushing. A lot of people pushing one another, or like choke slamming one another. I mean, it's not like Mr. Hyde. It's not like Mr. Hyde knows kung fu.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
He's just a big hulking guy who's really strong, and that's.
I don't know. I like the Jekyll and Hyde combo in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. Like, I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but I really like that movie a lot.
Like, honestly, I forget what that one's even like, because the only one I ever really go back to and think about is the one from Helsing, Van Helsing.
Oh. Is there Hyde in that one too?
Yeah, the first. So when you first get introduced to Van Helsing himself, he's hunting Hyde in France, and he kills him, throws him off Notre Dame. And so when he dies, he just looks like regular Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah.
And so everybody gathers around and looks up and sees Van Helsing, like, you're a murderer. You killed this poor guy.
Yeah. You didn't kill him. Yeah.
Right.
I get that. Okay. I don't remember that. I feel like I haven't seen the first 30 minutes of that movie in a bit. I see, like, the latter halves of it a lot. But, yeah, no.
These guys' problems, too.
But no, like
anyways,
in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he straight up hulks out. Like his hands get as big as his torso. Like, he gets giant. He gets like everything but except green. You know what I mean? Like, he's just big.
True.
So I don't know.
So into this movie, there's this little shot of like he's back in Egypt.
Sure.
And
got his boo still?
No, boo's hanging with the monster hunters.
Oh, well. Yeah, it's probably.
And then this is when Dr. Jekyll monologues a little bit. And he's just like, well, it takes a monster to kill a monster, and he's basically, I think he's essentially talking to the girl is what he's supposed to be doing. He's talking to her, and while we're watching, Tom's character, and he's just like, he's gonna have to figure out for himself what he is and who he wants to be, and whether he's gonna go to the dark or the light. That's essentially what it is. Meanwhile, Nick has brought his friend back to life, like to full life.
Sure.
And they're just like hanging about. And he's like, so why are we in the desert again? And Tom's like, where's your sense of adventure? And they just run off. It's real dumb. I hate the way they talk.
That's the weirdest way to end that movie.
So forced.
That's the last scene of the movie?
Yeah, and I don't think there's an after credits sequence. I'm not super sure about that, but I don't think there is.
So weird. It's
a bad movie, David.
That's awful. That sounds like a terrible time.
It was a bad time. So, after all that explanation, I hope you can see where it suffers from a little bit of identity crisis, not knowing what it wants to be.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think a lot of movies suffer from, and this movie definitely does, is franchise syndrome.
Yeah.
In that, this is the first movie of a franchise. We're going to make a bunch of these movies, so we don't have to make the first one any good.
Yeah.
Because we can solve problems later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a horrible way.
Yeah.
Like, I guess so many production companies now are looking for that. They're looking for like a chain, like a franchise that they can just milk for years.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be original, come up with good movies.
Sure.
Well, because of that, movies suffer.
Yeah.
Specifically the first ones, I feel. Because if you approach a film with the idea that you can fix stuff later, or that there's more later, there's more to the story later, there's stuff that you should hint at, you've got all these checklists. Oh, we need to hint about this. We need to set up this bit of world. We need to set up this character. We need to leave some story to fill in later.
Mm-hmm.
No, I hate...
Instead of having a solid start...
Instead of having a good movie.
Yeah.
Right, and so like 10, 20 years ago, you got a sequel if your first movie was good.
Yeah.
We got more than one movie if the first movie was a good movie.
Yeah.
That we enjoyed.
Yeah.
You didn't make a movie assuming that you were going to make two more.
Yeah.
You made a movie that was good. And if it did well, and people wanted to see more of it, you got to make a sequel. Woo! Excellent. And then you can make the sequels poor and slowly degrade and get worse and worse, and that's fine. That's kind of how things have gone for a long time. But I think now people see the success of Marvel and the MCU and other franchises like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings or even Twilight.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, that's what we need to do. We need to get a big old bunch of movies together that people are going to love so they can explore this whole world and do all this nonsense. But they think from the ending to the front, and they don't make their first movie good.
Yeah.
And they just assume that they can fix things later is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Or they can give us an extended version later that has all the plot holes that the theatrical release didn't have. Stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely stupid.
I hate that. I hate that so much.
Oh my gosh, yes. But I mean, I think a good example might be Pirates of the Caribbean. That first movie was great.
First movie was awesome.
It's super cool. It's fun. It's a good story. The characters are very well acted. They're very well thought out. They're definable. They're fun. They're cool. But then after that, the movie just kind of banked on the fact that people would come for Jack Sparrow, or for different effects, or for different fun action sequences.
Yep.
It seems, and then just more and more of that came. But at least we got a good movie out of it. It's like that's horrible to say, but I mean, I don't think anyone made the first movie assuming that they were going to make 5 more that could make up for or anything like that.
I thought the second and third one were pretty okay.
I liked them. Oh, yeah. I speak as someone who likes the Pirates movies.
Yeah.
I do. The 5th one could have been a whole lot better.
Yeah.
It was meh.
The 4th one was weak because I don't think Jack Sparrow holds a story very well on his own.
He doesn't.
But you and I discussed before about how he has a similar problem in that people tend they made him kind of dopey and goofy in the later movies.
They assume people like seeing him barely make it through. Yes, go through it on luck, being drunk, and he's just all blah, 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 and he luckily and narrowly escapes out of things and things like that, and everything just kind of happens to him. When in the first movie you see that he is a mastermind. He has an idea, he has a plan, and he's a skilled swordsman. And all this nonsense. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off topic, I think. But
yeah, I know what you're saying.
People make movies assuming that they have to lead up to more.
Sure.
Rather than just give me your best right now.
Yeah.
Assume that you're not going to make any more movies and give me that movie.
Yeah. I think that's when you get some of the best stuff.
Yes.
Especially like for instance. I know there's a better example of this, but the first one that comes to mind is the Firefly movie. I don't know if you've ever got a chance to see Serenity yet.
I have not seen Serenity.
But when they made Serenity, they made it with the knowledge that this is probably going to be the last time they ever did anything with Firefly, and they're like, we got nothing to lose. Let's make a good movie.
Yeah,
let's make this good. And that I guess a better example. But it's not a movie, would be the Final Fantasy game.
I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about that earlier. Yeah.
When you come with the assumption that this is going to be the only thing we do.
Yes. And that's I don't know how accurate the story is. I've been told the story. I've heard the story.
Yeah.
And so I'll explain it to anyone who doesn't know. The original creators of Final Fantasy, they had a small. Were they Square at first?
They were Squaresoft or something like that.
Something like that. It was a small video game company. They were making video games. They'd made a few, and they weren't doing well.
Yeah.
And they were assuming that their company was going to come to a close, come to bankruptcy, going to end. And so they pulled all what they had left, all the resources, and they put their time into a game. It was going to be their perfect game. It was going to be their last thing. It was going to be their Final Fantasy. Hence the name Final Fantasy. They assumed this was going to be their last game.
Yeah.
And it did amazing.
It did. It was their
great.
best thing. Yeah.
It was because they poured their heart into it and did so. They made a game that they love.
Yeah.
And they made a game that they assumed would be their final mark, I guess. I
think that's another thing that gets lost on movies that are presented in a franchise like this. Since in that, like, when people do movies like this, so I have a theory, and maybe I'm wrong, but because I've never been in the film business, but I feel like a movie does better when the people involved in the movie had a lot of fun making the movie, or had a lot, they felt for it. They had a message they were trying to get across, or this is something that we like.
Right. When they're invested in it. Which is why I was excited about the idea and aspect, the thought of Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
directing and being the head of the next Batman film.
Yes.
Because he wants it to be good.
Yeah, he wants that movie to be good.
But now because of all the nonsense, he's just stepped away from directing.
Yeah.
And that's.
But at the same time, like I feel like with a franchise movie, I feel like for some, it starts to feel more like work than you don't get that investment. It's just a paycheck. You're just trying to do a thing, and you're trying to put out content basically. And I feel like a lot of like what makes a movie good is lost in that. I think for me at least, I think that's one of the reasons the Fast and Furious movies have done as well as they have. It's like as goofy as they are and as silly as they are, like they have some heart to it, and Vin Diesel and the people that are in those movies like enjoy being a part of those movies. Like you see it on screen, it feels fun. Like you feel for these characters because it looks like they're all having fun, and I feel like it's not even all that much acting. Like I feel like they're genuinely excited to be doing what they're doing, and I think that really plays out. So,
but yeah, I hate it when I notice that in films.
Yeah, no, it's
when I notice that
tough.
you're just, and then for another example of identity crisis, I'd say Tomorrowland.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Particularly in its marketing versus its actual movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it was maybe trying to market itself as this fun, happy-go-lucky sci-fi flick.
Yeah.
Maybe for kids, but it had George Clooney in it for some reason.
Yeah.
Not to mention they curse a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he showed up in one of the Spy Kids, didn't he? Something like that?
I have no idea.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but not to mention they curse a little bit.
That was George Lopez.
They straight up murder some people.
They do. They do kill people in that. Yeah. He gets killed in that, doesn't he? From Key
yeah. Just
plays one of the.
Just turn into goop or some nonsense.
Yeah.
People just straight up get murdered on screen in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's just like it didn't feel very kid friendly or fun. And then like outside of that, it wasn't. It had somewhat of a happy ending, but it was so bleak. Mm-hmm. Most of it was just so.
It had a very sad outlook on life.
Yeah, and I was just like, what is going on?
It had a very okay. So this is one of those things. It's like it was one of those movies that had a very dark and sad premise, but had a pretty decent happy-go-lucky finish. But like it just I feel like it wasn't as satisfying because of how bad the movie or how sad the movie was leading up to that moment.
It's one of those things
that turned out to be very drastic to be what it was.
When I'm sitting in a movie and I'm like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah,
that's what I mean by identity crisis.
Yeah.
Or just being too many elements of one thing.
You feel a little cheated or whatever. Yeah,
too many elements of different things. Yeah. And it's just that's weird.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling in a movie. You want to be excited for what you were excited about. Yeah, I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, just franchises have
there's got to be a way to.
They've left such a bad mark on movies.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
Just
because there's some good ones out there, but
make a good movie.
Yeah.
And this is that's the other thing is like. This movie, The Mummy, when it starts, it has the Dark Universe logo. Like, it shows up, like, boom! Like, this is gonna be the Dark Universe, everybody! Woo! What's up? And then you watch this horrible movie that doesn't make money, and
that's
you're like,
awful.
Well, your chips are down now.
Your chips are
down. you done invested in all this and all this marketing.
Yeah.
You popped all this out, and you've told us this is all gonna happen.
That's terrible.
It is terrible.
That's so terrible.
Like things that just.
I think one of the things that I feel like it's another good example. I think for a good franchise, I think was the start for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. In that, like when they started with Iron Man, like the plan was to make a franchise, but like they had no idea Iron Man was going to be as successful as it was. There was no way to tell. Like it was one of their like Marvel Studios' first movies. Like they were just out of the box with their own studio company, and like there's just no way they would have known it was going to be as big as it was. Even to the point where they got to Avengers, like they kept building to Avengers, they kept hyping to Avengers, but they had no idea that Avengers was going to be worth the hype. Like they didn't know it was going to be as good as they've been trying to portray it. And then when it did, when it defied expectation, when Avengers just killed it in the box office, like, from forever, like, that's when they knew that they had a success in their hands. And it took years to get to that point. It took years before they were like, okay, Marvel now is, like, I guess from our perspective now, looking on it, like it's hard to believe that there was a time where Marvel Cinematic Universe like just was an unheard of like an unheard of thing, like, or not an unheard of thing, like, but it was it was up in the air, like maybe this will take off, maybe it won't, kind of thing, like, because like now it's like this like too big to fail type thing going on now, but there was a point early on where you're like, oh man, is this even going to be a thing? Is this even going to work? And it totally did, and I feel like it was because they didn't rely too heavily on, oh man, we got to put these little things in there. And I feel like they still did. They still had these little cameos or, little lines or Easter eggs, whatever.
It's funny that you mentioned Iron Man because, so in the first Iron Man, S.H.I.E.L.D. is there. Mm-hmm. But they're very small, a little bit. They don't even say their name until the end of it. Mm-hmm. Like, you can just call us S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Coulson's there, hanging out.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been a much more effective way of doing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's company, like a group.
Sure.
Like, have him show up maybe for one little tiny part in like a big epic action scene in the middle of the film or something like that, and the guys would be like, "Who the heck are they?" And then they get separated. They can't really figure it out. Mm-hmm. Later on, they figure out the mummy thing by themselves, our main crew, and then maybe the girl shows or says, "Hey, I'm part of this group.
Yeah.
We need to talk to you."
Yeah.
And then you cut.
Sure.
And then you're like, oh, cool, there's more to this.
Yeah. You can make a story where I feel like you could make a franchise movie where you make them, like you said before, make a good movie, and then you have something towards the end that's like, oh, by the way, there's maybe more to this story down the line.
Some little something. Just throw us a little bit. Like the end of
because
Pirates.
We know they're going to do this franchise. They've been building and talking about this franchise since the first movie's trailers started coming out. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I don't feel like we need these hints throughout the movie to know that. No,
and we don't need it. We don't need it. Like,
or it doesn't need to be as blatant as it is.
I did not sign up.
More
I didn't sign up for a movie about the group of people that hunt monsters. I wanted a good mummy movie, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that reminds me of the after credit sequence after the first Pirates movie that we mentioned.
Yeah.
It's just a little monkey.
With the monkey getting the coin back.
He grabs a coin and he turns undead again. And it's not... It doesn't promise more movies, but it shows you that this is a world.
Yeah.
And that there's still magic in it, and there's still things that can happen in it.
Yep.
Cool. Fun. Easy. Do that.
Yep. I just recently, before I came here, I saw the second half to the end of the third Pirates movie, and I forgot how much I love that trilogy, that original trilogy. Fun. It just did really well, I thought. A lot of people don't like the second and third movie that much, but I thoroughly enjoyed them.
Yep.
But yeah.
That's it for me, David.
Yeah. You got your mummy.
That's my time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So my thing today. So I wanted to start doing this thing. So I'm a little. I've been keeping up with superhero shows on the CW and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and things like that.
What a nerd.
Yeah. I've been watching those shows for a while. I watched them a lot for on Hulu back when the CW had a deal with Hulu where they were doing this thing where every time a new episode would come out, they'd put that episode on the night after onto Hulu, and so I would keep up with that. And in fact, that was why I ended up getting Hulu's like commercial-free service and stuff, so I could watch all my shows without watching the commercials. Right. And then after
they screwed you over.
Season 4 and Arrow and all the other shows, they lost their deal with Hulu and they instead gained a deal with Netflix. And their deal with Netflix is that they will post all of the episodes of a season 8 days after the last episode airs on television. So the only way to watch the show week to week was to watch it on the CW's own streaming app, which, if you've ever used it, is awful. It's terrible. The video is low quality. It's kind of grainy. It's almost like you're watching on a VCR. It's got ads like every 4 minutes, and the ads are always the same, and there's always like 2 or 3 of them repeating, basically. And I'm just like, it took me like an hour and a half to watch like one episode, and that's like a 45-minute episode. I'm just like, look, man, I'm just trying to watch a show here. I'm trying to keep up with my show. And at the time,
watching it on their app is literally worse than watching it on television.
It is. It's definitely worse. And my thing is also, it's like they had Arrow Season 5, they had Flash Season 3, Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, and Supergirl Season 2, which I hadn't finished Season 1 of Supergirl, so I wasn't really going to keep up with that. But that's still 3 shows to keep up with, not including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which actually Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on Hulu, and I could have kept up with that. I just stopped because of other things. I got busy and stuff, so I just didn't keep with that. But all of the shows are on Netflix now, and I've made it my mission now to go through them and to see what I missed and catch up and go through that. And I really want to talk about them. I'm going to start with Arrow this week, and then maybe next week, if I finish Flash, I'll talk about the Flash. But I want to talk about Arrow Season 5 specifically, the newest season. So spoilers if you haven't seen Seasons 1 through 4, I guess, But I'm going to do kind of a spoiler-free a little bit about Season 5, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more spoilers towards the end here. So Season 5, to catch you guys up a little bit if you haven't, or if you don't remember Season 4 that much. So Season 4 was when they fought Damien Dark. He's this like magic user. He was all powerful and super crazy. I don't remember what his deal was with Oliver. He was trained by the League of Assassins, so apparently he was also a good fighter. And Season 4 was just kind of meh. Like, they had the Olicity
That's
thing.
the season that I stopped. Like, so I watched Seasons 1, 2, and 3
Yeah.
while they were on Netflix. Because
Yeah. 1 and 2 were good. 3
I
was
will
kind of meh.
not watch anything on
4
television.
got worse, I think. In my opinion, I think 4 got worse. 4 got pretty bad.
In my opinion, 2 is the best thus far.
2 is the best thus
Season
far.
2 is real cool.
And people have told me that they think 2 is still the best. I don't know if I think Season 5 is better than 2, but I think it's definitely on par with 2.
Right.
I think 5 really takes it back a little bit.
I watched the first episode of Season 4, and that's about it. Like, after Season 3, I just wasn't excited.
Yeah.
For the thing anymore.
Because
Season 3 wasn't great, but in addition to not being great, it was just really samey.
Yeah. It was.
I just felt like I was watching the same
4
bit.
definitely
make
has
the
that.
Same stupid mistakes the whole time. Like, I'll never do this again. I'll be open and honest with everyone.
Oh, they still do that.
And they're not.
They still do that. Everybody keeps doing that.
It makes me so upset.
They actually kind of like comment on that a little bit. So far,
Hopefully
as I've seen with Arrow and Flash, they still do some of those things, but now they're more self-aware of those things.
Hopefully.
Like at one point, they're keeping a secret in the show Flash. Not to get off topic too much, but they keep a secret of this Flash. When somebody mentions it to one of the characters, and he was like, "Hey, can you not tell anybody about this?" And he's just like, "Yeah, sure. What's one more secret among friends?" And I was just like, "Yeah, no, this is kind of a thing that keeps happening. You guys kind of keep doing this thing." But anyway, yeah, Arrow has that. So Arrow Season 5, it picks up 5 months after the death of Damien Dark. Spoilers: he kills Damien at the end of Season 4.
What? He beats his villain?
Yeah, he beats his villain. He kills him.
Great day.
Straight up beats him. But yeah.
I think it's safe to say you have not ruined that season for me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say. Well, I don't know, because in Season 4 he's trying not to kill, and that was like a big plot point in Season 4. He didn't want to kill Damien Dark, but then he just kills Damien Dark.
That's odd.
Yeah, right.
he breaks in killing people in Season 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's the step. He's like,
yeah,
I'm gonna clean up these streets.
Mm-hmm.
Air to the chest.
But after Tommy dies in Season 1, he tries to. I don't know. He kind of flips back and forth.
Oh, I forgot about that, man.
Between killing and not killing.
What a feeling.
Uh-huh.
Tommy.
Yeah.
Have they brought him back to life yet?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
In fact, it's gotten to the point now where Tommy being dead has like not been enough to keep the plot moving forward, so they had to kill someone else important. They killed off Laurel in Season 4. Spoilers.
Oh, fun. When are they going to bring her back to life?
When are they going to bring her back to life? They're not, but they're going to keep bringing the actor back on because she has an alternate. She has an Earth 2 version of herself, Black Siren, and Black Siren shows up in this season. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of an interesting plot point.
Are these like leftover things from the Flashpoint thing?
They're actually leftover things from the previous seasons of Flash, in that alternate Earths were discovered in one of the seasons of Flash, and they brought that to the attention of Arrow at one point.
And so are they just like,
Season 4.
are they finding ways to get people from those alternate seasons in?
No, well,
Alternate
so
Earths?
in one of the earlier seasons of Flash, they one of the villains was from Earth 2, and he brought in a bunch of villains from Earth 2, and one of those villains was Laurel's doppelganger, which was the Black Siren.
So was there ever any point where
stopped
where Laurel's doppelganger and Laurel were both existing at the same time?
Yes, there was.
Okay,
There was a
cool.
time where the two of them
Interesting.
yes.
Sounds
Laurel
cool.
was in Arrow and Black Siren was in Flash, and that was a big deal in Flash.
Spoilers for everything we've mentioned thus far.
Yeah,
I guess.
And I guess they captured Black Siren in Flash, and then the villain in season 5 released her and brought her to Arrow to fight off Arrow, or actually really to kind of like trick him a little bit. But it didn't work very well. They're really getting smarter about that.
I bet they are. Hey, you look like someone that I killed. That is dead.
That is dead. Yeah,
I'm going to make you dead again.
It worked. It worked for all of like maybe half an episode, which was awesome.
Just shoot an arrow at it.
But no. So season 5, it's interesting. So the ending of season 4, basically like there was a lot of tension between Oliver and Felicity, and they almost got married, and then they didn't, and because drama was dumb. Yeah, well, yeah. Diggle also had some struggles with his brother in season 4, and he ended up having
dead brother.
His dead brother, who is not dead, who turns out to be a bad guy,
Yeah,
and he ended up having to kill his brother.
That's what I'm talking
in season
about.
4. So a lot of feels for Diggle.
Let's do some killing.
So he killed his brother, and it didn't sit well with him. So he decided he needed to find himself again, and so he went back into the military. So he leaves the team, he goes back to the military, and Laurel is dead, and Thea is around, but she doesn't want to take up the mantle of Speedy anymore. Roy is still gone, so it's just Felicity and Oliver doing the thing. And Felicity and Oliver, they're civil, they're copacetic around one another. They don't have any harsh feelings towards one another. They've resolved whatever feelings they had for one another, but they still care for one another, obviously, but they're not like together. They're just they're just a team.
That's so sad.
But so yeah. So and it's the two of them, and Oliver's like kind of oh, I also forgot the big point in season 4. He becomes mayor of Star City.
Oh!
So that's his alter ego. He's the mayor. So while he's being Arrow all by himself, he's also mayor all by himself. Although Thea helps him as mayor. She's his chief of staff. She helps him out with that. He actually mentions in the first episode of season 5 that everything he knows about being mayor he learned from binge watching West Wing, which made me so happy because that show's great. But yeah, so that's just the season 4 / first episode of season 5. But basically, in this season, Felicity brings up to the point that Oliver, he's like, he can't do this alone. We obviously know he can't do this alone. He's had a team for a long time. He's had Diggle and Felicity with him, and he still has Felicity with him. But she decides that he needs to get more people, and he's hesitant at first, but he ends up adding people to his team, and it's really neat to see some of these new characters. I think one of the things for me that made this season really, really neat was the introduction of all new DC heroes that we haven't seen on the screen yet, and some that are older heroes that don't really have they're not popular in the comics. They're like from back in the day that they've been re-envisioned as these new characters that they've created, kind of like what they did with Legends of Tomorrow, where they brought back Sarah and they made her the White Canary, which in the comics the White Canary is like some assassin that existed in the comic years ago that only happened in like one-off, and they're like, hey, now she's a good version of the I don't know, but yeah, she does good things. Anyway, she's like Gandalf, but
yeah,
she came back to life as the White Canary.
Very similar. Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, so it works like that. But so in this, he gets so you can see this stuff in the commercial, so it's not too much of a spoiler. You see this stuff in the commercial. He has Ragman on his team. He gets Mr. Terrific. He gets Wild Dog. He gets Artemis. He gets...
Oh, this is a list.
Yeah, he gets a team. He gets a whole team. And it's neat because when they first get introduced, you don't know anything about them. And you're like, who are these guys? And I thought I was not going to like these characters. I especially didn't think I was going to like Wild Dog because I, first of all, didn't believe Wild Dog was a DC hero. I was like, there's no way there's a character in DC that goes by Wild Dog. And it's like, and they even make jokes about that. Like, the character doesn't like the nickname. He's like, can I be called something else? And then it wasn't until I looked him up that it's like, not only is he not only is he a hero in the DC universe, he looks identical to his counterpart in the comics, and his costume is not at all original. He's wearing a blue jersey with an angry dog on it. He's wearing a hockey mask like he's straight out of TMNT. Like, I'm just like, this is not a DC hero, but it definitely is. He's definitely a hero. Look him up.
That is holy crap.
The guy that plays him, or the guy that plays Wild Dog, I don't know the actor, but the character Renee, he's awesome. He's a great character. He's a really interesting character. He struggles with a lot. He doesn't have any powers, like not that most of the team does. But he struggles with, like, he's not like skilled in the same way that Oliver is. He's not like witty and stuff like that. But he's street smart. He's very street smart. He's a little bit like Jason Todd a little bit. And he brings an interesting dynamic to the character because it's towards the middle of the season a little bit. You start to really, really feel for him when they start to find out about his backstory and about who he is as a person. You start to be like, he's not just this tough act. He's a good guy on the inside, and it's really neat. The villain is interesting twist. The villain is Prometheus. Prometheus being a villain who, and if you look him up, Prometheus, they say he's typically a Batman villain. He's been a Batman villain a few times. In my opinion, he's probably more a Justice League villain.
Right.
Prometheus, he's kind of an evil Batman. He's not superpowered. He's really, really, really intelligent and smart, and he plans things like hundreds of moves ahead, and he's got gadgets and all kinds of goofiness and stuff like that, and he knows how people are going to react, and so he makes contingencies for those plans. And that's the big thing about this. It's like with some of the villains before, I felt it didn't, like, the show tends to have this arc where the heroes start to find their footing, a villain appears, a big bad appears, things get really, really bleak, and it keeps getting bleaker and bleaker and bleaker and bleaker and bleaker, and then they turn it around on him. And that's how it was here as well, but I feel like in some of those seasons, it just didn't make sense for me. Like, I was like, it just doesn't, there's always this threshold that I'm just like, what, something is holding back Oliver from beating this villain, and it's never, it doesn't always seem believable. Like, with Merlin, it was like he had money and influence. With and I can kind of see that. I kind of saw that. With Slade, it was he had the Mirakuru. He was really super strong and hard to kill and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I get that. I can kind of get that. Yeah. With Ra's al Ghul, I was like, he has an army of assassins and he just can't be stopped. And I'm like, why can't he be stopped? Oliver has the same kind of training as this guy, and I mean, Roz is tough. I understand why Roz was tough, but it's like he has this army of assassins, and Oliver has been beating the heck out of them since season 1. So I'm just like, they can't be that intimidating. How is he omnipresent? And then season 4, Damien Dark had magic, and that was introduction to magic, and that was like his only thing. He was like, I mean, he was trained by the League of Assassins, which was like, I don't know, it made sense for like why he was kind of fighting Oliver, if at all. Right. But the main thing was like the fights between him and Oliver. And it's probably like one of the big criticisms of the show was the fight between him and Oliver, where generally Oliver tries to do the thing, he puts a hand out and he keeps Oliver from moving. He does like telekinesis him to stand still. And I'm like, that's so boring and it's so lame that he can't beat this villain just because this guy can just think him into submission. Like, that's so lame. But this character, you really feel it. Like every time Oliver thinks he's got a handle on this guy, he doesn't. He just doesn't understand. He's not even playing the same game. Like, this guy is just constantly outthinking him. And then it's like, it even gets better when you figure out who the guy really is. And it's like all the pieces start to come together and you're like, no way. Like, there's no way they did this. But it feels like realistic. It felt very much like a comic, and I really, really liked it. A lot of things they did in this season, I think, were in response to a lot of the criticism the show was getting, and I feel like they really improved on it. Even the fight scenes. A lot of people were talking about how, like, in season 3 and season 4, the fight scenes were starting to get a little static and kind of a little wonky and stuff like that. And the fight scenes they introduced, like, they got some new choreographers and stuff. They got some new people on the team here for this season, and it really shows. They do some really, really interesting fight scenes in this, especially with.
Isn't it great when people listen to criticism and get better?
Yeah, it really, really is. There is some drama with some of the characters. Like we see on the CW shows and stuff like that. But I felt like a lot of the stuff that was going on with the characters only helped improve the characters. Like I felt it helped them like make them feel more real and really progress the story. Like I didn't have like there weren't a lot of episodes where like a character was doing something and you're like, oh, why are you doing this? We've seen you do this crap all the time. Like it doesn't make any sense. But it's just like these new characters. Like I felt part of it was because they had this new team. You had this new team and these new characters. We didn't understand. They didn't know. From their perspective, they didn't know how Team Arrow worked because they weren't on Team Arrow before.
Right.
And so when they started to become this team, this new Team Arrow felt
that's cool.
Neat because it had a new tone, it had new people, and they were learning too.
I imagine it's harder to get upset at those new people for making this similar mistakes maybe that other people have made. So if you did a 5th season with this team that's been there since season 2 basically, it would be real hard if they were having difficulties. It'd be hard to believe.
Yes, it was.
So I think that is a good...
And it was a really neat...
Good decision,
thing.
I think, in the writer's part.
I was worried, like I said, I was worried early on that I wasn't going to like these characters. But I did really like the characters. They each brought something a little bit different to the team. Oh, I say each, but not all of them. So there was a couple weaker links, of course. I mean, that's just how it is. But there were definitely some really, really strong ones. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed Wild Dog, like I thought, even though I still don't like him, Wild Dog. But he's a good hero. He's a good character. And Curtis playing Mr. Terrific was excellent. I'm glad that he went by Mr. Terrific, and I'm glad that he started to become his own hero, and that like early on in the show, he just wants to be trained by Oliver. He just wants to learn how to fight and stuff like that. But he's a super genius. Mm-hmm. He's a character that got introduced in season 4, I think, or maybe even season 3. I think he got introduced earlier in the show.
Pretty sure I saw him in season 3 because I was aware of someone being introduced.
Yeah. He's with Felicity working at Palmer Tech and stuff like that. Like he meets her then, and at that point when he got introduced, I recognized his name from the comics as being like, oh, this guy's going to be Mr. Terrific one day, and I'm so glad they did because it felt so realistic the way he came into that role. Like he got to the point up to this point in the show, he's always just been this like tech guy in the background and he wasn't really doing anything, and it wasn't until during the recruitment process early on in the show, he gets mugged. He gets his first like up close encounter with violence.
Crime,
yeah. And he's like, I don't want to feel that weak again. I want to be taught to fight. I want to get out there and I want to do.
I want to kill people.
Yeah,
let's go.
But he learns to fight, and then even when he learns to fight, he still gets his butt handed to him a lot. And it's the other characters that introduce that are like, hey, look, this isn't your strength.
That's something that annoyed me, is how many people were able to just hand Oliver his butt in season 3 of this.
Yeah.
Or season 3. Because, I mean, by season 3, this is 8 years? He's been trained in fighting crime.
On the island,
if anyone with any little bit of training, I think he has a fight with Thea for a little bit, and Thea kind of is at least on par with him, and then other people that are just somewhere on par with him, and I'm just no.
Yeah.
You're not
yeah. No, I get that too.
He's better than this.
Yeah, he is.
I hate it when people do that, when they try to show off how cool one person is by downplaying.
Yeah, the characters. I think the characters on the Team Arrow in this season definitely have a good way of they get plenty of screen time and learn to grow and stuff like that, but they don't do that in exchange of upstaging Oliver. Oliver's still their teacher. He's still better than all of them.
And just like that,
even then, he's he kind of puts that over them or whatever, but he's not I mean, it's kind of more of a joke than anything, but he genuinely feels like the character who is a little bit better at everything than they are because they're still learning, and I think that's really neat.
Good. I think that's a good element.
But yeah, so
just makes me want to get through season 4.
So I know, it's definitely, if you haven't, season 5 is great. And one other thing, I was saying, Curtis, he keeps getting his butt handed to him even after he's being trained, and it's not until one of the other characters in the crew was like, hey, look, maybe fighting isn't your strong point, maybe tech is your strong point, which is something I had been whining about at the beginning of the season. I was like, Mr. Terrific, where's his T-spheres? And then he creates his T-spheres, and it's amazing. It's amazing in the show. He starts using these gadgets, and the gadgets are so cool. They're saving the world, and he's doing all these really neat things, and it's when he has his T-spheres, he's this really dope guy. And then when he doesn't have his T-spheres, he's just a nerd who knows a little bit how to fight. And he's still able to hold his own,
Right.
against certain enemies and stuff like that. So he's not like hopeless, but you still feel like, oh man, he's definitely stronger with his teacher. He's definitely stronger with his tech. He's definitely stronger with his strength, his intelligence, and it's really neat. And even then, he still struggles on a personal level with some of his like family life and things like that. And I think that's really interesting. There's a lot of heart that goes into some of these characters, and I really like it a lot. Ragman too. Ragman, he's a little bit more religious, and he's Jewish like Felicity, but they kind of push it a little more. Like I forgot Felicity was Jewish because they stopped bringing it up.
So did I.
But like they kept bringing up the fact that he was Jewish throughout and not like in a weird way, like, oh, who's this Jew? Like he would be referencing things from like religious texts and stuff. Like you could see that he was a devout like Jew, like he went to church and things like that. Like I don't know, temple.
Synagogue.
I don't know. He goes to
synagogue.
Yeah, he goes to he would worship basically, like, and people would kind of pick at him for like, oh, you believe in God and things like that, and he's like, yeah, well, yeah, there's a plan for everything, things like that, and it was really neat. It was an interesting twist to the team, and Ragman is an interesting thing because his powers are a little bit more magical in than they are like tech or physical, and while while they weren't implemented the same way in the show as they would be in the comics, it was still done in a really neat way that he was able to be an important part of the team, I think. But yeah, also, this being year 5 off the island, this is the last year that Oliver has flashbacks
Yep.
of the island. And I think the flashbacks wrapped up rather nicely. He finishes up in Russia. And it talks about how he joins the Bratva, and it talks about how he meets up with
explains
Anatoly.
that.
Explains
That's
that.
cool.
Where he gets his tattoo, like where he gets a lot of his scars on his back. It's really interesting how he gets back to the island. Which he gets back to the island because a little bit of a spoiler, but it's a flashback, so obviously it's fine. He gets back to the island because he knows that it'd be better to keep his cover if he's discovered on the island than if he wishes just to walk back into Star City on his own accord.
Yeah.
And so they put him back on the island and they give him a wig and a fake beard, because that was the question I was wondering, was where's he going to grow that beard, because he kept trimming it throughout all the flashbacks. But he gets a fake beard and wig and stuff to go on the island. And he gets all these rags that he puts on and stuff like that to make him look like he's been stuck on this island for 5 years.
That's
and
awesome.
It's really neat, and it's a really neat way it wraps up. And Anatoly, the Russian friend he saved in the arc with Slade and in season 2.
Right.
He's introduced in on the island, or they show his interactions with him in the Bratva and how he joins the Bratva with him, and it's really neat because I really love their connection, their brotherhood and stuff like that. And then I was like, oh man, at what point they're gonna, in the flashbacks, they're probably gonna kill off Anatoly, and we're not gonna. That'll explain why we don't see Anatoly in the current season. And no, he totally exists. He's totally alive, and they run into him in this season, and it's interesting. It's neat. They have some beef. They resolve it kind of. But it's neat. It's a really interesting thing because I really thoroughly enjoyed Anatoly. He's a really cool mob boss. I don't really like mob bosses that much, but he does a really good job of it. He does it in a way that's he's doing bad things, but you kind of see that he's doing them for good reasons.
Right.
It's an interesting dynamic. I think it's a cool thing, and it's a neat parallel, or it's a neat mirror to how Oliver is, in that he's trying to do better. He's trying to do good by doing good instead of just doing bad things, especially with all the struggles he's had with killing and not killing and things like that. So yeah,
cool.
It's a good season. I think there's a lot of good things in it. I want to go a little bit into spoilers, so I want to talk a little bit about it, some things I liked and some things I didn't like. So yeah, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, I don't know, skip to the end or something. I don't know. We might put some time. I don't know. I don't care. This is your warning. But okay, so one of the big things is, when Oliver becomes so Diggle eventually comes back to the team.
Oh, cool.
Later in the show, not too late. It's episode 5 or 6. He starts coming back because basically he while he's in the military, he gets framed for this treasonous crime basically, and Oliver hires his district attorney to free him of his charges to get him to come back. And when he does, well, first they break him out, and then he becomes a fugitive, and that's not great. And then they have to clear his name basically, and so that helps. But anyway, Diggle comes back to the team, and he's a really, really, really good source for the team. He really helps them push them, and he's a neat part of that And I like that they didn't like just leave him gone. But he also has the bit. So he helps him kind of understand how Team Arrow goes. Basically, he helps him understand their role. But he also has a lot of anger issues he's trying to deal with because he still hasn't quite dealt with the loss of his brother and how he had to kill his brother and stuff. But that's still good. A big thing that I didn't like, I still don't like it because I still don't quite get it, is Artemis. Artemis joins a team. She joins a team early on. We don't really kind of understand her motivations, and then like about halfway through the show, we find out she's working for Prometheus. And then I'm just like, and it's kind of like how it is in Young Justice, but then it turns out no, she's definitely just a bad guy. But I'm like, but why though? Like it's never, for me at least. Like I know they kind of give an explanation, but to me it's never really explained why she turns evil. Like it just doesn't to me. I'm just like, why go through the trouble? I don't know. It just doesn't. It just feels weak. But yeah. So like after Diggle gets released, though, Oliver has this really strong connection with his district attorney. The district attorney is a really neat guy, Adrian Chase, and he does a really good job with like protecting Oliver as the mayor from whatever kinds of troubles he's going through in the press and things like that. And at first I was like, I don't know, who's this guy? Get him out of here. I don't like this character. But then he really warmed up to me. And it was just about that point when I really started to like Adrian that we find out that Prometheus is secretly Adrian.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, no. And it just, everything gets so ridiculous at that point. It gets so stressful and anxious. Also,
I think it's good.
Also, spoiler, he's trained by Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul gets introduced into this season.
Oh, so another daughter of Roz.
Yeah, another daughter of Roz. The main one, really. Because Nyssa is actually apparently also a daughter of Roz. But Talia is... Talia's introduced in this show. And she's...
Is Nyssa still alive?
Yeah, she's still alive. She shows up towards the end to help fight Prometheus. It's really neat. The final episode...
She's interesting to me.
Is fantastic.
I bet.
They bring her in. So Prometheus has his whole plot planned out, and I just got to talk about the finale because it's just so good. The finale. So, and I'm just losing my mind. Basically, he individually kidnaps every member of Team Arrow except Oliver. He gets them all. He gets Quentin. He gets like Quentin Lance, Laurel's dad, the detective. He gets him. He gets everybody. He gets them all. And he takes him to Lian Yu, and Oliver goes to Lian Yu, and he's like, I can't do this alone. But instead of like bothering like Barry Allen or any of the legends or anything like that, he ends up going to Lian Yu on a ship from Argus, and he breaks out Captain Boomerang and Slade Wilson.
What?
And when he finds Slade Wilson, so this is the best part. When he finds Slade Wilson, the Mirakuru has passed to his system, and he's back in his normal self. He's a good guy again.
What?
And he's just been sitting in his cell, like feeling regret for the bad things he's done. Now that he's
same actor.
Same actor. Brought him back and everything.
Wow, great.
Yeah,
I heard he had bad blood, so
I thought so too. That's what I was like when I heard about it. I was like, what? There's no way. But they revamp his costume. It's really dope. He's super good, and there's this like moment where like he like turns on Oliver to like give it Prometheus, and you're like, oh no, why would he trust Slade? And it's totally an act. He did it. They planned it. They planned Slade to turn on him to make Prometheus feel safe, and then they turn on Prometheus, and it's so amazing. Slade's amazing. So good.
Good. I'm glad.
So freaking cool. But I'm really happy about it.
Slade?
And then the big thing is though.
I wish you could all witness
the final,
David.
Right.
Psych up about
I was losing my mind. I'm losing my mind now.
Outside
just
of
thinking about it.
Audio, but again, this is the life we've chosen.
This is life we've chosen. But my big thing was like the big cliffhanger they leave the season on, and we know we're confirmed with a new season, so it's going to continue from here, which is great. But the big cliffhanger they left the season on is that they find out that the entire island of Lian Yu is just covered in C4 bombs.
Oh, fun.
And the C4 bombs are triggered to a dead man switch hooked up to Adrian Chase, to Prometheus. So that if Oliver kills Prometheus, it'll blow the island up and kill everybody.
Oh, fun.
Which Adrian so badly wants to prove that Oliver is the murderer he is by getting him to kill him. And Oliver's like, no, I will never be the man you want me to be. I'm not going to kill you. And so finally, the man also kidnaps Oliver's son, his biological son that was from the mother out of wedlock, whatever, in the previous season. I don't remember what it was.
Gosh, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so he had a son.
Holy crap.
And he hides it from all...
That was before the island, right?
It was before the island. Yeah, it was before the island.
He was just goofing around.
Mm-hmm. When he was a playboy. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's in season 4. That's the big thing that breaks Oliver and Felicity up, even though it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense, but she doesn't like it. Anyway, he has a son, and he hides his son away because he doesn't want villains to find out about them. And Prometheus finds out about him, kidnaps him, and takes him there. So what they do is, the final showdown is, everybody on Team Arrow is trying to get off Lian Yu, because they know about the bombs, and Oliver is on a boat with Prometheus trying to keep him from getting away. He gets on the boat with Prometheus, and he's trying to figure out where his son is, because he's found out where everybody else is, but he doesn't know where his son is. Prometheus has his son on the boat, and so he pulls him out, and so Oliver has the moment where he can either shoot... So Adrian makes it so that you can either kill me and kill your team, but you'll save your son, or you can not kill me, and I'll kill your son, and your team will survive. And so that's the choice he makes. And so... Oliver shoots Prometheus in the leg. He drops his son, and he saves his son. And then Prometheus is like, well, you made the wrong decision. And so he kills himself with a gun. He shoots himself in the head, and the Lian Yu explodes behind them. And it's just Oliver and his son on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
Wow.
I'm just like... What does it mean? It's so good, Ethan!
That's good.
Arrow's so good. I'm so happy.
Oh, good. No,
I'm really excited about it.
That's good.
I'm excited to see the future. I'm really super excited to see
the Fast Five
the continue
of the series,
CW. Yes, season 5, man. Get it out there. It's good. Flash is starting to get into that season 3 Arrow thing, where as far as I've gotten into Flash, it's not been that great. But we'll see. We'll see how it ends up.
Turn it around.
We'll see how it wraps up. But so maybe next week I'll talk about Flash if I finish that, and we'll continue. I'm probably not gonna watch Supergirl for a while, just because I'm not as invested in that story as I am in the other ones. So my plan is probably to finish Flash, then Legends, then Agents, and then maybe watch some other things, and then I'll come back to Supergirl.
Good plan.
But yeah, so Arrow's good. If you I guess if you come back from spoilers or not spoilers, or whatever, if you haven't seen anything of the Arrow, or if you've kind of left Arrow, season 5 is a good reason to come back. It's solid. It's good stuff.
I will do that.
Enjoy it.
That sounds like fun.
Yes.
Good stuff.
I think that's
that about wraps it up this week.
Yep.
I am Ethan LeBlanc.
I'm Dave McQueen. We're the nerds you know.
We are those nerds you know. You can find David somehow through
YouTube, Good Guy Dave, and on Twitch as Good Guy Dave TV. If I start posting things there eventually, maybe, sort of. We also have some social media,
somewhere.
We have a Twitter now.
Yep, it'll be up there eventually.
It'll be up there. It'll be in the links down below, I guess.
Cool beans.
All right, guys.
Thanks, everybody who listens. We love you.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.
Ah.